Have you ever wondered what was out there in the night sky? Stared up at the stars in the hopes of seeing something out of the ordinary? Have you heard unexplainable noises coming from a vacant room, or watched a shadow cross the wall in front of you? Have you asked yourself if there is life after this one, or if you had life before? What about strange creatures that are mythical and elusive? Have you experienced deja vu or felt a prompting to leave because you felt you were in danger? If you have, you were on the fringe.
Welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Mark.
I'm Pam.
I'm Jess.
I'm Enzo.
There we go.
Enzo, the legendary gentleman.
Woohoo!
No longer probationary men.
Yay!
Who's the man, the myth, the legend? Well, before we get started on tonight's show, we'll take care of a little housekeeping. I've got a few ads, and then we will move right on along. Hey, this is Mark with What If Tomorrow and What If Tomorrow on the Fringe. Be sure to check out our website, whatiftomorrowmedia.com, and look at our cool merch. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, posters, and more. Our affiliates are Duke Cannon, EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply, and Conflicted the Game. Or check out buymeacoffee.com/whatiftomorrow and buy us a coffee. And as always, be sure to like, comment, and share on both Facebook and YouTube. It helps get our content out to others and help our channel grow. Now on with the show. Yay! Ready for the show. Well, thank you.
All of our millions of followers. Yay!
Yay! Well, all of our millions of followers would love to hear about Pam and Enzo's trip to the McIntyre Villa, which I spelled incorrectly. Thank you, Internet.
It was pretty great. We went with a group up to McIntyre Villa, which is in Atchison, Kansas. It was built in 1889 by, I think his name was John McIntyre, if I remember correctly. And they built it over a course of 2 years. It's gorgeous, y'all. It's when you go into town. Jess has been there before, too. Mark, have you been there yet?
I have never been there. I've seen some pictures, but that's about it.
It's a pretty incredible place. But when you come up to it, you can see it as you about a block away, and it's got the spire on it. It's really just a very cool place. But Stephanie is the owner, and she actually hung out with us for the night. So that's the first time I got to actually investigate with her the entire night. So that was fun. But we had a partial group, all of us but Adrian from Amok were there, and then some other buddies from over in the St. Louis area came too. So it was a full house. It was a really good time. And Enzo got to go on his very first ghost hunt. And he is properly broken in. This was such a good place to go.
Yeah, I was not disappointed. I didn't went into it not knowing what to expect at all. It's like, am I gonna have to yell at a ghost like they do on TV? No. There was plenty of activity. Certainly caught some glimpses of something moving around here and there. Lots of foot traffic, lots of odd banging here and there and things like that. So it was pretty interesting. The house itself is amazing on its own. Just from the architecture and all the different rooms and all the different places. We got the nickel tour before we settled in on to do any kind of investigations from the basement, ground floor, second floor, and up into the attic. It was kind of hot in the attic. Nobody went to the attic after that initial tour. It was very hot up there. So
it was way hotter. We were there in, I think, June when Jess and I went. It was way hotter this time around than it was.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's just even hot everywhere right now.
Yeah,
because one of the things that my only, I guess, complaint about it, which it's hard to really complain about it because you either dealt with it or you just were boiled alive is all the individual rooms had those smaller, like standing out in the middle of the room type air conditioners to help
Yes.
keep that place cool.
Yep.
And even with that, it was like, I'm not quite sweating, kind of a thing, unless you were sitting right next to it. Then the downside of that, of course, is just that constant hum of the AC
They're
unit.
loud, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're sitting there trying to do recordings or listen back. He's like, I think I heard something, and you're trying to listen to it. It's like, just turn that thing off for a minute, and immediately it starts getting hot.
Yeah.
So
There was no in between.
Yeah, to do that, I think like in the spring or the fall would be way better.
And Stephanie did tell us that there were 9 deaths in the house. And of those 9 deaths, 7 of them occurred in September, October, and November. And she said that in her experience, those are the absolute most active months of the year. So if you can get in during one of those months, you're definitely going to get a show. Which
Right.
after what we experienced, Jess and I, the night when we were there was a lot. There was even more this time around. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So it would be really, I would love to be there during one of the Burr months to see how it goes. I think
Nice. Nice.
Well,
All
tell
right,
us some of the stuff that happened.
Yeah, tell us about
Tell us like your highlights.
yes. Go for it, Enzo.
Oh, I gotta go first.
Yep.
For me, it was well. Of course, I've never seen any of this in real life, so I was excited to see that. I was walking around with my action cam, filming everything that I could, kind of a thing. I did have a electronics malfunction while up in the doll room. Ken was getting. He had his the radio thing that does the, what do you call that?
His ghost box.
Yeah, his ghost box.
That's what he calls it, but it's ghost box.
Yeah. He had his ghost box going, and he was getting some back and forth through that. And I was sitting there trying to document all of it, film it all. And I suddenly get a pop-up on the screen. It's like, you're after about like 15 minutes. It's like, this is too hot. We're going to shut down now. And just this little warning saying, hey.
And it was not that hot in there.
Shut down. It really wasn't.
No.
It was actually one of the cooler rooms, because that was also in the doll room, as I recall.
It was, yeah. I was in there when that happened.
Yep. And so it was, it's like, oh, crap. Is this going to happen all night? Kind of a thing, is always hear the stories and all that. But, I guess that's my one. And I did have an issue with it later on. I ended up just putting the camera off to the side, because it was still, that was the other thing about the house, is even with all the lights on, it was really dim. All the lighting in there is really, really dim. But I got to see like 2 different groups operating totally differently, because upstairs with Pam and Ken in the doll room, and Shaw was up there too. All the lights are on. They're making a lot of noise. They're talking over each other. Everybody's, just a lot of chitter chatter amongst each other about what that person said or what they said, or blah, 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 blah. And then I went to some of our other guests that joined us downstairs at a later point. All lights were off. Everyone's just sitting there quietly. And we're still having conversations, but we're saying it very, very low tone, so as not to be very loud. And all that. And that is when I, from the corner of the room where I was sitting, just chatting back and forth with a few of the people, that is when I saw something kind of move past the doorway. And immediately there were 2 guys in there that had their recorders going with, live headsets on, turned up a little bit so they could hear anything. And as soon as I saw the thing, I started looking. It's like, I think I saw something move out there past the door. And they're like, we just got this really loud EVP. And we tried, of course, you're on your little recorders here, which just have a little like tiny like half-inch speaker. And everybody's trying to listen to it. You could certainly hear that it was a language. You could certainly hear like the hard consonants and A's and things like that, but you couldn't quite make it out exactly what it was saying. So it was going to take a little computer cleanup, I think, to really get that. But it should be something fairly pronounced, because it went on and on for a minute or so.
Yeah, you should be able to pull something from that for sure. And I think it was it Marsh that at one point he heard this sound. It was almost like, if like there's an earthquake and you hear that sound of stuff moving. They caught that, and then they were like, I don't know what it is, but it wasn't maybe 10 minutes later. I can't remember the exact time, but they definitely caught a teacup rattle, even more than the little bug. You could hear the china moving. And they happened to be in a perfect point where they could see the teacups that were setting out. One of them was completely moved from where it had been. So
we've got the saucer that has a little indent where the cup would sit in. It was rattled off almost over centered on that. And there were like 4 of them around this one table, and just one of them had rattled off to one side of the saucer. It was pretty weird.
And after they figured that's, it was the china, then they realized, that original rattle, that is that sound. It was something vibrate. It was probably the cup vibrating off of the saucer. So it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
It was. And there was some ghost cat sightings, which we do know that there is a ghost cat there. Enzo definitely saw it, and I know Marsh and Jen may have seen it too. I can't remember who else it was.
Well, that's what they'd seen it just before the teacup was rattling. And they think that might have been the cat running around kind of jostled one of the teacups, is what their theory was.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, cats are assholes, so yeah.
They are.
Yeah, you see something.
Gotta love them.
Whether they're alive or undead, they're just assholes.
And I, in the hallway upstairs, they had set up this little motion detector, but it was hooked to this music box, and everybody was in the doll room with the door shut. So, and I had been setting up in that front parlor by myself. So I came down that hallway and I was going to knock on the door, and I came by that not knowing it was there, and it went off. Scared the fire out of me. I thought I was going to faint. It was like, I opened the door like,
did you need a new
knocked on the door,
diaper?
and they're like, did you guys hear that knock? We heard a knock. I'm like, yeah, it's me. I'm scared. Y'all scared me with the music box.
And it was actually that kind of stuff that surprised me about the place that I wasn't expecting. Is there was that kind of stuff all over the whole place. The little ghost ball, cat ball things that light up when they move, or just scattered all over. And it's like, did one of these guys come in early with like a whole bag of them and just throw them? It's like, oh no, that's part of like the thing of the house. So it's just there for everybody. Kind of a thing. Little balloons with the lights in them and stuff like that. There was a lot of stuff.
Speaking of the balloon with the light in it, I do have a photo. Let me pull it up here. So in the downstairs in the front parlor where the piano is, that's where I slept on one couch and Shaw slept on another one. And she had a live stream going the entire night. So she aimed it at her. And so, there was that little bit of glow from her phone. But that's really all there was. And I didn't even realize that there was one of those balloons with the light in it in the room with us. And I was laying there with my eyes shut and realized there was like a pink glow. I could see something glowing through my eyelids. So I opened my eyes, and one of those balloons was in there, and it was like bright, like super bright pink. And the whole room was like lit up with it. So I did take a picture of it. And then I asked, Stephanie later how long that balloon had been lit up, and she was like, that one has been a good couple of days at least, and usually they don't last that long. Let me see if I can find it here. It'll take me a minute. It always takes me a minute. You know what? I should probably pull it up first. That would be helpful.
Maybe.
Did you guys try the music trick?
We did not.
No.
Oh man, I totally blanked on that.
We tried playing the card game. We played 21 for a while, and not a whole lot with that. I went off to do something else, but Pam, I think you were down there when they busted out the Cards Against Humanity. To play with the ghosts, which apparently that got some reactions, as I understand it.
It did. It was pretty funny.
Even the dead are offended by that game,
right?
Yes, they are.
See how bright this thing was? That is above it is her phone. And so, I mean, the whole room was pink. It was just all lit up pink. And yeah, Stephanie was like, that one's been in there at least for a couple of days. It was dim enough. I didn't even realize that it was in there with a light on in it before we laid down. So I thought that was pretty wild.
That's definitely brighter than any of the other balloon things that I saw in there. And we looked at that did we look at that one the following morning? And it just
Yeah.
did not look that bright.
No, you could barely faintly see a light in it at all the next morning.
Yeah, a lot of those balloon ones, like you say, had been there for a little bit, so the light was fairly dim. I didn't even realize there was a light in it at first. For the first one I saw sitting on the floor,
Right.
it's like, why are there balloons laying around? And so to have that being that bright was shocking to me to see that.
It was shocking. And here's a photo of the Motley Crew. The one up front, the blonde with her eyes crossed, that's Stephanie. She's the owner. She's a mess. But yeah, we had back there in the corner, on the other side of me is Ken. He's from Amok Paranormal with me. And the lady with the pink hair, that's Shauna. She's also with Amok. And in between them is Karen. She's from St. Louis. And then up front on the other side of me is Patty. And she's from St. Louis as well. It's a great bunch of people to be with. It was fun.
Yep.
I have to give Stephanie kudos. She takes care of that huge house all by herself.
She does.
And you guys know, we've been in some of the worst situations ever when it comes to hauntings. But she will willingly walk into that house by herself and sit there and work and clean while she's listening to things walk above her.
Yep.
And things move and things shift. I don't know how many videos I've seen of stuff just moving around her while she's working.
Yes.
And she just goes about her day. And I like to think that I'm a pretty good investigator, that I'll go towards whatever is, but if I'm alone in a house for hours and it ramps up like that, I don't know if I could have the nerve to just carry on like nothing's happening like she does. So
I agree.
Clap. If you've got enough energy to move that crap, you've got enough energy to clean that table.
No kidding.
Put you to work.
Fine. You try moving that broom back and forth over there a few times.
Yeah.
It was a very active night. It seemed like almost every room we were in as a group, you could hear voices muffled in the other room. Couldn't quite make out what they were saying, but you could hear conversations everywhere, which was really wild. And a couple of sounds of like babies and different things, small children. I know we got a couple of laughter on one of the EVPs. It's pretty cool.
Oh,
nice.
Because like at one point, like midway, I don't know how late it was. That was the other thing, is I never looked at my watch the entire time. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'm getting kind of tired." It's like, wait, what time is it? Oh, 2:30. Yeah. Okay. But there was one point, Patty and I went back up to the doll room. That for whatever reason we kept gravitating back to the doll room, and we did an Estes session thing, I guess is what you would call it. I'm not that familiar.
Yep, an Estes method.
And where I was the one wearing the headset, listening to the scrambled radio thing and picking out the words as they came. Can't hear what she's saying. That's how it works. And you record the whole thing and then you play it back later to get the both pieces to see how they match up. And when it originally started, and I imagine this was mostly me because I'd never done it before. I've seen it on TV, and that's kind of it. It was pretty difficult to pick out any kind of words. There were some I thought that might be a word, but I'm just not even going to say anything. I'm not sure. And so it took a few minutes, but the first word or phrase I heard, it was, I don't know what the radio station was doing. Maybe it was like they were just playing like some kind of comedy bit or something, because it was, I recognized the voice from a male comedian. I know I just can't quite place the name of who he was, but I heard a very sarcastic, "Why aren't you dead yet?" to start it all off. Like,
people ask me that all the time.
We're gonna start that, are we? Okay. Why aren't you dead yet?
Maybe they really liked you and were wanting you to come hang out.
As it turns out, just like 4 or 5 words later that I picked out, they actually said my name. They said Enzo.
Yeah.
Which Patty asked the question, is like, who am I talking to? Enzo. So they were a smart ass, whoever it was that was talking.
For sure.
I mean, I'm
Maybe it was
totally
you
going to
from
haunt
another
people, and
dimension.
I'm totally going to be an ass.
No, there was, because how long was it? Like 20 minutes, 15
Yeah,
minutes.
like 15 minutes, I think.
Towards the end, there did seem to be like kind of like a shift of conversation where maybe it was somebody else that was talking and I was just repeating their words
Yeah.
and whatever, because it seemed to be very different tone. But at no point was it ever like malicious. I never sensed anything evil or malicious or anything like that the entire time there at McIntyre. But
No.
we listened, Patty and I listened back to it immediately on a recorder up there in the doll room just by ourselves. Then we brought it back down and we played it for everybody. And that is when, as we're playing it, when there was a pause between when she would ask a question and I'm trying to wait for a word to come up, there was a very clear, almost kind of a, honestly, I mean, everybody kind of agreed it sounded kind of like a baby crying, kind of like,
It did.
kind of a sound. And when we listened to it upstairs just a few minutes earlier, we never heard that. So we're like, well, maybe that was actually like in the room, because we were in the dining room area around the dining room table where we were all listening to it. So we rewound it to cover that area, and it was on the recording. It wasn't. How did we not hear that when we were upstairs and heard it the first time?
And that's new. I've never ran across before where it shows up on recording when it wasn't on it prior. And y'all, it was loud enough that we thought it was in the room with us at the dining table. And that's why we were like, you know, back it up and make sure it's not on recording, because that sounded like it was right here with us. And sure enough, it showed up, and, you know, both Patty and Enzo were like, there's no way. It was that loud that, yeah, there's no way it was on there prior.
It's
When they listened
not
back.
like you can add that to a digital recorder. It would erase whatever's there. So
Exactly. And
That was-
Stephanie, she had an SB7, and she actually, at one point, she didn't tell us. She just went and set it on the servants' stairs which was on the other side of the kitchen from the dining room where we were. And so, you know, and it only records when it hears. So there's not like long silences. It's just like kind of when you play it back as a continuous, as long as you had it running. And there were definite conversations in that, and you could hear what sounded like little kids, and it was pretty wild. It was really interesting. So
Pretty cool.
yeah, I don't know how she stays there by herself all the time either. I'd get the willies for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Stephanie's
Yeah,
awesome though.
She is. She's a hoot and a
Yeah,
half.
he's a character. But what else was that? Had a few people participate with a Ouija board session, and not to rain on it or anything, but not a whole lot came out of it. It was practically nothing. But Pam was actually one of the people. Originally, they had 4 different people all touching the planchette, and just no movement, no kind of responses to anything. So they just went down to 2. But Pam, you said you were getting like a tingling feeling?
Yeah, I put just the fingers of one hand, not on the planchette, but on the edge of the board itself. And Karen put hers on the other side of the board itself. And she was like, I feel a tingle. Do you feel that? And I was like, I do. But it felt to me more like, you know how like sometimes you can feel your heartbeat in the ends of your fingers? That's more what it felt like to me, was like a heartbeat feeling. But there was something going on, but it was like it was trying to pull energy. I don't know what it was doing, but that's the only thing we could
buried
think of.
in the floorboards.
That was actually the second time when my camera bonked out again.
Yeah.
Same overheating.
Yeah, that was very. It was pretty ineffective, though. Nothing came of that.
Yeah.
And what else did we do? Oh, we played 21, and I guess they've had luck before. I've never tried that, but they played 21 and dealt in the spirit as well, and left the recorder going and explained how to play it. And nothing worked. And then we were like, okay, well, we're just going to play Words Against Humanity, for a little bit. So they pulled that out. And at one point, the ghost box that Ken had setting there said life, which we thought was really interesting because we didn't know at the time. Shauna had just drawn a card that said life, and she played it. She's like, okay, that's my clue. I'm going to go ahead and play it, and she did win the hand. We thought that was, she's like, oh no, I can tell you, I drew that right when that said life, and so that was kind of cool. So we were like, okay, it likes Cards Against Humanity, not so much for 21.
Yeah. Didn't care for blackjack, didn't care for the Ouija board, but Cards Against Humanity. Somehow, if it that has to have been the same entity that started off my Estes said, "Why aren't you dead yet?"
Probably. It's a fascinating place. It's got some really incredible history to it. Now, when we were upstairs pretty early on, I stayed in that front parlor by myself and used dowsing rods and did get some feedback. But then I went down to the doll room, and Enzo headed back up there with me, and it really didn't get much of anything after that, which was kind of disappointing. But yeah, because I really wanted them to see how well they work, and they just weren't. Not a lot of response at that point.
Seemed a lot of I don't know how they work or what if it means anything, but it seemed like it was a lot of opposites with the rods when it would, instead of, because you would say, if you can understand me, cross.
Yeah.
But it was like they would parallel each other. I noticed that a few times, and then just totally opposites.
Yeah, it's like
times.
It's just out of there. But I did at one point asked if it could point to Enzo, and it did point to Enzo. That was kind of cool. But, other than that, it wasn't really answering too many questions for me that night. But, yeah, very, very cool place. I got, I think, maybe an hour and a half sleep the entire night.
Yeah, I was about the same because everybody – what time was it when everybody decided to crash out? It was
about 4:30.
Okay, was it that late?
Yeah, it's about 4:30.
Because I was not tired at all.
Yeah.
Because there were some other things that were said during the Estes method that I'll discuss some other time because I'm still trying to figure it out. But anyways, so I just, honestly, I didn't even lay down. I was just kind of propped up on one edge of the one sofa there. I don't even know what that room is called. But
the leather couch room is what we were calling it. That's where you slept, Jess, when you were there.
Right.
Yeah.
I just kind of leaned up in the corner and was just kind of doom scrolling on my phone. And of course, by that time, we'd already been in the place for 8-9 hours or more at that point. And it was so old hat to hear foot traffic up and down the stairs and someone running around on the second floor. And several times I did hear distinct 2 female voices talking in some other part of the house. Which was, obviously I was on one end of the house and Pam and Shaw were on the other end. But I could have sworn it was those 2 talking, but I could kind of look around the corner and there were no lights or anything on over there. It's yeah, it's not them. But also heard a metal clanging kind of sound, sort of like in a bowling alley where they have those little small lockers that you can store stuff in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just those little small metal doors, cheap metal doors. It sounded like one of those, just bam, bam, bam. Which when Shaw, she left, she was live streaming the whole thing all night long, and someone had stayed awake, some other part of the world where it was daytime there where they could stay awake all night, was watching it. And they said that they heard a metal clanging sound. They said they heard a man coughing. They said I can't remember if they said they heard the female voices talking back and forth or not, but so yeah, it was super crazy active when everybody was asleep. But it was one of those footsteps. That's no big deal. That's old hat now.
Did you tell Enzo about what happened in the middle of the night when we stayed there the last time?
I don't remember what happened.
So Ashley and Craig invited us to go pin paranormal, and they actually opted to stay upstairs in one of the bedrooms.
I didn't. No.
And they were very nervous about staying up there. It was very active in that hallway that night, and they were just there were so many with us that time that there was just no room downstairs for them. So they opted to take the room upstairs, and we were all kind of taking bets on how long they could stay up there. Because we were they're not going to make it. And about halfway through the night, I of course was in the I was in the room where you were staying at, Enzo, and Pam was like in the next room over in that parlor area.
Mhm.
And we both had clear shots of that staircase. And in the middle of the night, we hear bang, 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 bang. And it sounds like luggage and stepping. And I was facing away from the door. I didn't turn over to look. And apparently Pam didn't turn over to look either. But, you know, we both had clear shots of hearing. And both her and I were sure that they had spent a part of that evening packing up and moving all their luggage downstairs. And I could have sworn I heard them walk out the back door. And I thought maybe they were going to go sleep in their van because they had a big van with them. Because they had discussed doing that, maybe sleeping out in their van. And I just giggled to myself because I was like, they couldn't hack it. And I know that Pam was a little giggly too, like, he. Couldn't stay upstairs. And then when we got up in the morning, we kept waiting for them to come back into the house. And they never came back in, and they never came back in. And finally, we were like, somebody needs to go, you know, wake them up or whatever. And just then, they came down the staircase. And we were like, hey, didn't you, what, did you go back upstairs later or whatever? And they were like, what are you talking about? We slept up there all night. So, yeah, the ghosts apparently moved their luggage out, maybe? Or,
sounded like
know.
it, or made us think they did. I know
one
at
of
one
them might
point,
snore, and the ghost said, "I've had enough."
maybe so. I know at one point they were too scared to get out of the bed to come downstairs because that big ball fell in the room that they were in and rolled across the floor. And they were just like, yeah, no, we're not putting our feet on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh,
The only thing that happened to me that night when I went, after we were done investigating and we'd all had gone off to bed, the only thing that happened to me was that the bathroom door, which is at the foot of the couch, the bathroom door opened up a little bit on me. And the only reason why I know that is because I left the light on in the bathroom with the door shut. So people needing to use the bathroom on the first floor could kind of see by the light underneath.
right.
And then at some point, something walked past me in between the coffee table and the couch because I felt the blanket that was laid over the side of the couch move as they brushed past it. But that was it for me. Just during the night portion. I won't go into the rest of the investigation. We'll be here all
One
night.
thing that did happen quite a bit was the light in the kitchen kept coming on over the
Oh,
sink.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It at least 3 to 4 times that I know of while we were in the dining room.
So really, when you guys were getting ready to do the Ouija board, there was a really loud knocking sound coming from the kitchen, which is right there next to there.
I forgot about that.
Like real loud, like somebody had like a broomstick and was like whack onto one of the cabinets or something. It was really
we were like, is there an ice machine? And she's like, yeah, there's no ice machine. And it sounded louder than an ice machine. That's the only thing that we could think of that might even remotely sound like that.
Really big spiders.
Maybe.
Would have been really big.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that parlor room, I totally had forgot about it until you mentioned that parlor. That's where Ken slept. He slept in there by himself. And we were chatting a little bit after Pam and the rest had all gone to bed. And we were just kind of chit-chatting amongst ourselves real fast before he zonked out. And there's kind of like a front door in that room that like leads out to the porch.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like a stained glass kind of stuff, so you can't actually see through it. But if there was like a car went by or something like that, you would sort of see the lights there. But I was kind of facing that, and Ken was kind of like catacornered to that, where you could sort of see that front door. And I was distracted while he was talking because it looked all the world like a shadow passed in front of like that glass, that window area. I was like, is somebody on the front porch? And Ken was like, you saw that too? Because I saw it when it started over there. That was inside. So it was like, ugh.
That's pretty wild.
I totally forgot about that until you mentioned that little parlor room.
Okay, I'm excited. I'm excited Enzo got a good experience for his first investigation.
That's what I told him. And I was like, I don't want to disappoint you, but you pretty much hit the holy grail of places. So the next time you go somewhere, don't be disappointed if it isn't anything like this, because that place is just completely active.
That place, it showboats. That place showboats.
It does. But if anybody is interested, it's you can find them on Facebook, and they have a website. It's the 1889 McIntyre Villa, and it's MCINTEER. And very cool place. They have Stephanie puts up some really cool pictures from other teams and other people that go in there to investigate and stay the night. And she has a really good thing going there. So I'm really glad she's continued with it. And we told her we wanted to come back, and she was super excited. And she said she would love for us to. So, and she did stay and investigate the entire night. So that was fun. That's the first time
I remember asking Pam at one night, it's like, does she do this with all the groups that come in? I can't imagine being here like, 6 days a week, spending the night in this place, all with a bunch of different strange people all the time. It's like, nope, just happened to be us for some reason.
Yep.
Well,
I know she does it a bit, but she doesn't do it with everybody. That would be insane to have to do that every night.
Yeah, we were pretty excited that she wanted to, because she knows.
Yeah,
Ken
y'all's
really well
frequent
too.
flyers though, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ken and Karen for sure have investigated a few times with her, so she was excited to hang out with them. So, yay! But it was fun. That was our weekend. I came home and barely made it home, trying to drive and keep myself awake, and Shauna was keeping me awake too. But I came home and slept 12 hours and 55 minutes. So yeah, I haven't slept that much I'm not sure I've ever slept that much.
I'll have to admit, driving along there, I was driving back home. I mean, for me, it was only like 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 40 minutes. I'd got to like that 2 hour point, and I was like starting to drag a little bit. It's like, man, should I stop off and get it? It's like, nah, it's only like 30, 40 minutes. I'm practically, in my backyard now. It's, it's like, I'll be fine. And I was, but I can't imagine like Ken or
I know
Karen, they had to travel so much further. It's like,
they had to drive back
awake
to
all night.
Louis.
Yeah, that's a drive.
Yeah, and then they got caught in traffic. All three of them did at some
lovely
points. Yeah. So,
lovely. All right. That sounds like a fun place. I recommend everybody go. It's on my list of places to visit one of these days.
I certainly learned a lot. There was a lot of technique that I got to witness in person. It's like, that's how you do that. Or, that's the best practice for it. It did seem to me like the sitting quietly in the dark seemed to me a little more opening for observations than everyone getting excited about hearing a crackle on the radio kind of a thing.
Yeah.
All that.
All right.
Cool.
I will fix the spelling on our show later.
Yeah. Not TY.
So are we ready for some crazy stories?
Let's have some cray stories.
Who's going to go first?
You can go. You haven't talked yet.
Yeah. What are you yapping for the last 40 minutes?
Than I do tonight.
All right. So we're doing, I think we did this around about a year ago. I think it's been just about a year. We did a session of believe it or not, Ripley's type stories. So while we're doing the investigative side of all of these stories that we bring you, we run into really great ones that are just too small to present as an entire show. They're just not big enough to carry an entire show. So these kind of get saved up. And last year we opted to bring you a whole show of just these little nutty nuggets. Nutty nuggets, is that a good word?
That's a great word.
So I guess I'll start it off. So we've just we don't even know really what we're all going to be doing here. We're just going to start chucking in stories and seeing what comes out. So one of the ones that I've been wanting to do, I've been sitting on for a little while, is It's kind of gross. It's kind of creepy. It's a little story out of the Mark Twain Caves in Missouri. It's just outside of Hannibal. And anybody who watches this show should know Hannibal because we've talked a lot about the time slip that happened in Hannibal with the little girl who ended up dying of the plague because she supposedly got zapped back. So the Mark Twain Caves are just to the north, I believe, of Hannibal, if I'm correct. Either way, they're just outside of Hannibal. And this story, I call it The Dead Girl in the Tube.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's weird. So this happened back in 1840. True story. It's completely documented. So there was a doctor back then named Joseph Nash McDowell. He was like the very influential back then. He was the most respected doctor for miles around. He actually purchased one of the caves in 1840s and used it to secretly carry out dissections of cadavers, which was illegal back then. Right? He also harvested his own cadavers from the local cemeteries, which was highly illegal back then. And he did teach classes. He was kind of a professor. He would teach the younger doctors coming up, and they had to sign a waiver saying they weren't going to rat him out, but you had to actually dissect at least one body if you were going to graduate from one of his classes. So he was also involving local doctors in all of this mess. He was also highly spiritual, and he actually claimed that he talked to his mother all the time in the spirit realm. And unfortunately, his daughter passed when she was 14 of pneumonia. And he was so saddened by this that he decided he wanted a way to keep her so that he could continue communications with her. So he actually scrounged around and found a huge glass tube, filled it full of alcohol, and then chucked her in.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Pickle
And it gets
Polly.
worse. It gets worse. So not only does he have this girl, his daughter, floating in this glass tube full of alcohol, he suspends it from the ceiling of the cave because this is kind of like his laboratory, right? So these younger doctors are coming in and out, and they see this, and eventually, of course, it makes its way out. The townspeople find out about this, right? The townspeople come in, they pull her down, they make sure she has a proper burial. He's kind of shunned now, although they won't say anything too bad about him because he's the doctor of the area. You don't get a lot of those. So they get her down and they bury her, and apparently now she haunts the town in that general area there. They also found out later on, so they let him keep the cave and the laboratory, even though they found out he was doing all this stuff. And they actually raided it again years later. And they're glad they did because they found out that he was actually in with the Confederacy and he had been stockpiling their weapons for them in the cave.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, jeez.
Dang. That is crazy.
So if you were ever in the Hannibal, Missouri area, go check out the Mark Twain Caves because you can actually go in and view it. And of course, she's not up hanging there anymore. And the stockpile is no longer there, but you can hear all about it. They have a little history museum and stuff with it. And you can go buy little, like trinkets and stuff to commemorate your trip.
Barbie
to the
dolls in
Mark
a
Twain
test
Caves.
tube.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Loading.
Oh.
It's like
Yeah,
Confederate Frankenstein, this guy.
It's like a
Yeah.
really bad Polly Pocket.
Yeah. So you can go visit his particular cave. It's called the Mad Dr. McDowell Cave because that was the nickname he took on in his older years. The townspeople called a
He
Mad
lived up
Dr.
to it, didn't
McDowell.
he?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Were they wrong? I don't think so.
That is nuts.
Pickle Polly Pocket.
Oh, there you go. That's bad.
Gross.
Ah.
All right.
That is
Somebody else's
funny kind of
turn.
way.
All right. On a lighter note, On Newsweek.com, Stormy Daniels claims a non-human thing with tentacles haunted her former home. The very dark, non-human thing with tentacles haunted her home. She claims that the spirit broke items and affected her health and mental health, and then her boyfriend. Daniels, 43, is, of course, an adult film star and director best known for being involved in a legal dispute with Donnie Trump.
Oof.
Okay.
So, tentacle monsters.
Not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
I
Apparently, she didn't have a problem with it, but who knew stormy hentai was a thing? That was
yeah, who knew?
Ooh.
I bet that becomes popular in Japan.
yes, exactly.
No.
So now that
the
little
next
disturbing
victim?
nugget is
Moving
out.
on. Shall we move on? Okay, I have one I ran across. This is a story of David Lang, and I had never heard this one. I thought it was kind of interesting. So David Lang, on September 23rd, 1880, and is it Gallatin, Tennessee? I may have the pronunciation completely wrong there. Anyway, September 23rd, 1880, he's walking across a field in front of his family when he suddenly vanishes into thin air. His disappearance had witnesses. It was twilight, but his wife, his children, and some of his friends that were standing near a horse and buggy, they all watched this happen. And they all jumped and ran, instinctively to the spot where he had last been seen. And there was nothing there. No idea what happened to him. There was like 5 of them that ran to the spot. They all got there almost exact same time. Not a tree, not a bush. There wasn't a hole on the surface anywhere, not a single clue to indicate what had happened to him. And this story was actually retold by his great-grandson, who's also named David. And David recalled speaking to his grandmother, which was the disappearing David's daughter. She passed away in 1965, and she was 87 years old. But he talked to her before she passed and asked, if she could tell him the story. And what she said was that she and her brother, after their father had disappeared, they would always go down in that area and play. And they called it Daddy's grave, basically, because he never came back. They never found him. So they just, viewed that as his grave. But about 6 months after he disappeared, they were putting 4-leaf clovers out on it. And all of a sudden they heard their father's voice. And both children heard it, both the brother and the sister. And it seemed to be coming from the base of a large rock that was near the area. And he was calling to them. They could hear him calling their names. They tried to answer, but it was like he couldn't hear them back. And about an hour later, his voice just fades away, and they never heard it again, ever, even though, they tried to go. They were out there a lot trying to hear, but never heard it again. And then years later, they hired an excavation crew to come and dig on the site, and they didn't get very many feet below the surface before they hit a solid floor of granite. There were no sinkholes found, no wells. There were no Indian burial mounds in the area. It was nothing but rock. Absolutely no clue whatever happened to this gentleman. So,
well,
it was an
obviously
interesting one.
He got iseki'd and was taken away to another world to slay the Demon King.
Maybe so. Maybe that's what it was. It kind of reminds me. There's a story of Ambrose Bierce that he had written a story called, I can't remember the exact title, was something about a gentleman walking through a field or a pasture and disappearing. And then can't remember how long after that's exactly what happened to Ambrose Bierce himself, was he disappeared and there was never anything found of him either.
Well, all jokes aside, it really sounds like a time or a dimensional slip.
Absolutely it does.
So.
And, it's really sad because the kids could hear his voice. And so, it's almost like it was a parallel slip or something into another dimension where maybe he could see them, but they couldn't.
He could have been in the same place you know,
Mhm.
he might have been able to see him. I don't know.
He may have. I don't know.
I would think he would have been able to answer them, though, because it was only one way when they were hearing his voice before it finally faded away forever, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe he walked in the area where he knew he poofed into and was just calling
Right.
for him. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be one of those things if you found yourself in some new magical place, like draw an X where you were
Yes.
standing so you could find it again. Maybe you can slip back out.
That's good advice, sir. Everybody listening at home, if you ever think you slipped, mark
Carry
your spot.
an entrenchment tool and dig an X in the ground so you can find your spot.
A little piece of chalk,
Sure.
something. Just
Something.
For
Spray
sure.
paint.
That was one of them.
Right. Did
Actually, I think there was a
Enzo bring
Twilight
anything?
Zone. I did not. I was not aware we had assignments. Pam just asked, like, "Hey, you want to come on tomorrow? We'll talk about McIntyre." I was like, "Okay." I didn't know that there was. I would have certainly looked something up. If,
I'm
if I had
sorry.
known.
I should have said something. But McIntyre's great stories on their own. So
Yeah,
You
well,
should tell
there's-
just a little bit. I know you don't know the whole story probably, but talk a little bit of, you were talking about that stuff that fell from the sky years ago that reacted
Oh,
weirdly when you touched
the angel
it.
hair.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
It's I mean, it's happened, I guess, several places. It's mostly been like there's a couple sightings from like early colonial America and a couple spots in Europe, Western Europe, where what looks something like, because sometimes in is it the spring or the fall, where certain spiders will spin out like a long web and then kind of use it like a parachute spider, where they're kind of like floating on the wind with it to move around. It looks something like that, only much heavier. There's like giant strands, several feet long, that are just raining out of the sky of this gossamer thread-like material, enough to where it covers the ground, where it looks like it snowed. And after a fashion of it falling down all over the buildings, all over the, the barns, all over the ground, all of that stuff, it starts to kind of disintegrate, just kind of like dissolve, to the point where there was a case I remember reading about as a kid. It had to have been the 50s, I guess, somewhere in the US, where they got like a mason. Oh, was it the 50s? Where they got a mason jar and were like trying to scoop some up just to kind of analyze it. And they're looking at it in the jar and it's still dissipating to nothing, with like no residue or anything. And they always refer to it as angel hair falls, where it rains basically almost like a cobweb type material that covers everything. And then without any kind of like rain or anything like that, it just kind of disintegrates all on its own. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So
even in the jar, it's like nothing. I mean, there's not like any goop or anything. It's just void.
Just gone.
Interesting. Huh.
The first documented report I have of it is at the Miracle of Fatima on 13 September and 13 October 1917.
Wow.
That was a big one for a lot of things.
That was.
And the most widely reported incidents occurred at Oloron, France in 1952, when great flakes of it were reported as falling from a nearly cloudless sky. But
Wow.
So it's
That's
interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, it usually gets lumped in with other things that rain from the sky, like the fish that fall out of the sky, which you could reasonably say, okay, a water spout somewhere sucked it up out of the ocean or a lake or something like that, and then got caught in an updraft and then just deposited it further inland. But there's also been reports of like strange organ, like internal organ type meat raining from the sky, which they tried to blame on buzzards regurgitating it, flocks of buzzards. It's like, that's an awful lot of meat for birds vomiting on your whole town, kind of a thing.
And I know I've heard stories of like fish falling from the sky in a great
frogs. Yeah,
all kinds of things. Yeah, rocks, and even rocks coming down to where they would like fall down around the houses and things, which I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's weird.
It is weird.
Speaking of fish, they're reporting that sharks from the Atlantic Ocean are now testing positive for cocaine.
That was a great segue, by the way.
Wow.
And I have heard that. That's crazy. So instead of cocaine bears, we're going to have cocaine sharks.
Cocaine
That's
sharks.
not good. But it's not
Like-
good.
Just constantly chattering its teeth underwater all the time, grinding their teeth.
That's what you get for eating those mobsters with the semen overshoes.
Yeah, attacked one of those homemade submarines coming up from Central America and Mexico.
Well,
Oh,
maybe we should
no.
just turn them loose looking for, I mean, if they're addicted to coke, just
Oh Lord.
get a whole bunch of them and get them all hooked and then turn them loose in the ocean.
This is not good.
Bye-bye, drug dealers.
Never going swimming again.
Oh Lord. All right, moving on. So I always like to bring a couple of stories about out of place objects or out of place artifacts, right? So I got a couple of them for us here that I thought were super interesting. I've kept them to the side for a while, so I get to like debut them. So the first one I have, these both actually happened in Pennsylvania. This first one happened July 28th, 1858. And it actually happened to some miners. So we're mining here. They were digging, let me see if I can say this correctly, an anthracite coal field is where they were digging at. 1899. I messed up the dates. So a miner named George Miller and his crew were digging into the number 3 slope on number 3 level when they found what they thought was a sulfur ball. And upon further examination, the miners realized that they were not looking at a sulfur ball, they were looking at a human face. Right? The rock weighed some 40 pounds and they scraped it down clean to absolutely find a human head inside that was petrified. The jawbones of the head were really heavy, and they said the cheekbones were prominent and very far apart. The nose was super small, and the back of the head was flat and broad. Interestingly, previous to this discovery in 1899, miners at the nearby Henry Clay Colliery had found a man's hand, which was also petrified, found in a ledge of coal of Slay in Lycoming County. Now, the interesting thing to this, let me just say this to the people at home that are listening, why this is so extreme, is because anthracite coal is the oldest kind of coal on the planet there is. It's the oldest. And the anthracite coal from the Pennsylvania area is from the Paleozoic era, and it dates back to 286 to 360 million years old. And they're finding bodies in it.
That's crazy.
So that would have been like the peat bog, and then they were preserved. So
yes, but back millions of years ago when supposedly we were not here.
So either we've got time travelers, or it does not take nearly as long as they thought to create coal.
One or the other.
One or the other. So the next
Humans
one
have been around a really long time.
The next one I got is really short
Keith
too,
Richards.
and it's not nearly as like it's a little nutty, but I thought it was a fun story. So this happened in Plain Grove Township in Pennsylvania back in 1858. While sinking a well, they found a chicken's egg firmly embedded in the sand, 33 feet below the surface, in completely perfect shape, uncracked, looked completely fresh, right? They brought it up and took a look at it and shook it, and it sounded like a fresh egg. So they went ahead and cracked it, and they said it put out a perfectly fine, normal egg, but it turned black in 2 minutes. Like it turned that fast.
Strange.
After it was exposed to the air. Yep.
Huh. It's like
Well,
what do we call them? The 1,000-year-old eggs.
Something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
But
a Chinese
100-year eggs in
one.
China.
100. Oh yeah. Okay, 100.
Now,
I'm a little off. Just a little.
now, what's the lime? What's the lime like in the soil there? Is what I want to know, because I don't know how
don't know.
many of you
You would glass it,
know.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, there is a way to preserve eggs called glassing an egg, where you take mineral lime and water, and they call it water glassing, and you mix it up and you put the eggs in it, and it actually seals the shell, and you can keep an egg unrefrigerated for, I believe, up to a year.
Yeah, I think so. It's quite a while.
It's quite a while, so it could have been there a while. How it got down that deep, I don't know.
yeah.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me.
33 feet. That's what, a little bit more than a 3-story building.
Yeah.
That's
So-
It kind of reminded me of the frogs that they sometimes find, like deep down in the strata, and once they warm back up and stuff again, they just pop right back to life. Only the egg didn't, of course. The egg spoiled really fast, but it was some kind of a preservation.
Well,
It also said it was in sand, not soil, so maybe whatever was in that sand.
How deep
right.
was it? I mean,
Yeah.
Enzo.
The question
Scramble
is
it with
how the
onions
hell did
and
the
peppers,
egg
it'll be
get down
fine.
there? So,
You.
yeah, I mean, we don't have any pictures. There could have been a big crack in the ground, and a chicken could have
Yeah.
laid it, and it could have rolled down, and then water
sure it was
glass.
a chicken egg, not like a turtle or something like that.
they said chicken egg, so but I don't know.
Yeah, there's no pictures, so
Pretty wild.
pictures or it didn't happen.
Okay.
All right, who's
I have
I
one
always
here.
look-
This is a newer one. If you guys you may have heard this on the news recently, where scientists have discovered dark oxygen on the ocean floor. And Mark, I sent you a picture of this.
Yes,
Do you
I'm
have it?
going to try dark oxygen.
It's a very unappealing thing.
It does look rather unappealing. I'm
It
going to
does.
present that.
Reminiscent
And
of a small cow patty,
here's-
actually.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not pretty at all. So while Mark's looking for that, I'll talk about this a little bit. There it
Oh.
is.
I
Yeah,
bet there's an egg inside of there, I bet.
possibly. So where they're finding these, this particular spot, it's like 12,000 feet under the ocean surface. So it's down where no sunlight can penetrate. So there's nothing there that would promote like photosynthesis, which we have always been taught, and it's always been understood that plants and algae go through photosynthesis through the sun, which produces, oxygen, and that's how everything's oxygenated on the earth. But what the scientists were running into was the fact that when they were doing let me back up a little bit. They had a research team out to measure how much oxygen was being consumed by organisms at the bottom of the ocean. So what he saw and what they did was they would scoop up seawater from the deep, and instead of seeing a sharp decline in oxygen levels, they were seeing a rise in them, and it wasn't making much sense. So he actually took his equipment and sent it back to the manufacturer for recalibration like 4 or 5 times. And because he was thinking it has to be a malfunction, this can't be right. But if you think about the fact, if you take a standard AA battery and you put it into salt water, you're going to see bubbles and you're going to hear a fizz. And, that's generation of like hydrogen and oxygen gases when the electricity splits the water molecules. And that's electrolysis, So that's what they were kind of thinking. Maybe this is what's happening on the ocean floor. And when they looked at these nodules that they were happening around, they took one out and tried to figure out, well, first they did the process of elimination, and it came down to maybe these nodules where this was coming from. And what they determined was that these nodules by themselves could juice as much as like 0.95 volts, which is it's not a whole lot. It's just a little short of, what you would need for seawater electrolysis. But they did figure out that with them clustered together, these nodules, that would overcome that hurdle, and it would cause enough to actually cause oxygen to form, which is incredible. This basically turns on its head this one scientific theory, that this is how just lost my words. Sorry.
Oxygenation.
Yes, thank you. This is how oxygenation occurs, thinking that it can never occur in the dark, but apparently it can. The unfortunate part of all of this is that these nodules had already been attracting the attention for its deep sea mining potential, because not only are they creating oxygen, which they didn't know at the time, the mining companies didn't, but they are also known for their richness in rare earth metals. They include cobalt, nickel, copper, and manganese, which are all important things to create batteries, smartphones, wind turbines, and solar panels.
I was going to say, you got a natural battery there made from the minerals they look for to make modern batteries.
Yep. So, yeah.
Maybe they're decayed batteries from an ancient civilization that was swallowed by the sea.
Ooh, there you go. Maybe so.
They dumped all their batteries in the ocean? What jerks?
I mean,
What? Well, literally what turds. It's kind of what it looks
our
like.
company does it. Our country, our people do it all the time.
So
big
maybe this
companies
is
do.
just off products of an ancient civilization.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Maybe so. I don't know. But I thought it was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Even though I
Speaking
stumbled
of
through it.
strange rocks, the Perseids meteor shower will be peaking this coming weekend. So if you've never seen it, go outside and check it out. About every 4 or 5 minutes, you'll probably see one streaking by. And since it's summer and it's nice outside, because some of the really, really bigger ones come like way later in the year, where it's much colder outside, like December and stuff like that. So this is the one where you can kind of sit outside with a cool drink and enjoy yourself, and just keep an eye on the sky and see nature's light show.
It'll be cool.
If I don't work 6 days a week this week, I'll give it a shot.
Well, hopefully you don't. That's too much.
Hey, are you guys interested in buying some real estate?
Oh, I am.
Great. In Devon, Drake's Island, just 600 yards from Plymouth, is now for sale. It was used as a military defense for hundreds of years with 18th century cannons included in the price. It also includes 15 ghosts.
Oh,
So
Yay!
Well, now we're all interested.
Why do
cannons and ghosts?
why do they have such a specific count?
I'm not sure why they have such a specific count. So let me see if I can show you a picture of the place. Here you go. It's got its own
It's
fort.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I'd put my house up here in the corner and, have the fort, and the ghosts can stay over there at the fort, and I can stay in my house. It'd be great.
Wow.
Actually,
You got
that's
your own
kinda cool.
beach? That would be
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
I'd come visit. I'll come hang out with your ghosts.
right?
Does it come with a cabana boy?
I don't know. It's up
It's
north.
a
Maybe
cabana
a little,
ghost, so
little
Oh,
boy.
well.
Yeah.
As
So-
long as they're good looking.
You might
and
not be
they'll pour
alive
the
if you're
margaritas,
okay with
I'm
that.
good. Oh my goodness.
That's a good one.
All right. Okay, so moving on. I'm going to move on to a weird creature. Right?
Ooh.
Me?
Yeah, this one's going to be good. You're not weird.
It's the
Oh, please.
Is it the mustache?
yeah.
yeah, he's referring to the mustache. Yeah,
The mustache.
Oh, that's my
Okay.
pet.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's
Here.
alive. It
Must.
just crawled up there. And have to feed it once in a while.
I look like Hitler.
So I'm going to do a little shout out really quick. We've got Karen with Doof Doof Paranormal from Australia. She's in the chat right now. And then we've got Ian, and he's in Derbyshire. I just completely killed that.
River
So
Shore.
sorry.
We
Ian.
apologize, in for anything that she says.
Yeah.
Yes,
Southeast
you know.
Kansas accent. It'll kill anything. But we're happy you're here. Yay.
Yeah.
Thank
Welcome.
Two countries
Welcome.
separated by a common language.
Yeah.
That's very true. All right. So, November 17th, 1991. So, this isn't like an old story, right? 1991. Charleston, Arkansas. This dude was out bow hunting for deer and came across the strange remains of some weird creature dead underneath a tree, partially covered in leaves. He takes it back home, and this is how he explains it. So he said, "It was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen some strange things. It was pretty well decomposed when I first found it, but it still had flesh and hair attached. It was later estimated to have been dead between 5 to 6 weeks by the time he'd found it. It was long in the body like a deer or a giant dog, but its legs and arms weren't like normal animals. Instead of paws or hooves, it had what looked like strange malformed hands. It had sharp teeth, definitely not a cow or deer, but they were a peculiar shape that didn't resemble an animal I had ever seen. The skull was shorter in the muzzle, like an ape or a human. The most unusual feature was a ridge bone that rose from its spine like a dorsal fin. The finder reported feeling nervous around it. The carcass was passed through several professors at the West Arkansas University, Oklahoma Baptist University, and the University of Oklahoma, among many others, all coming up empty. It was then taken to the Minnesota Dinosaur Museum to be examined. They concluded that it had been found less than 2 months after its death, and that there was no room in the spine of the creature for a nervous system. Another odd detail was then added to the case. It was learned that about 2 weeks before the creature was found, the Land and Animal Survey from Fort Chaffee had conducted some massive search of the area. Area residents reported hundreds of helicopters flying low through the area over the course of one weekend. They were landing in people's yards and just off the side of I-40 freeway and everywhere else. The military base was called by local law enforcement, but was given no answers. Many believed the creature to be extraterrestrial in nature, because 1 month after the creature was recovered, a UFO was witnessed flying over the outbuilding the creature was being kept in. Now, if you want to, Mark, I sent you a couple of pictures.
Yeah. How big
this
did they say
weird
this
ass-
thing was?
Well, you're going to see it. So I didn't find exact measurements of it.
That one?
Hmm.
Yeah, and that other one of that weird creature is it up close in color. I found a color picture of it. So it continues, like this thing is for real.
Ew.
God.
Yeah, the
Horrifying.
creature has since been examined by medical scientists, and they have concluded that it was a meat eater, whatever this thing was. It had 3 sets of teeth that worked like a chainsaw, so it would have ground its food. It would have walked on 2 legs and had a neck that could swivel 180 degrees. It had 32 ribs, more than any known animal. The fin on its back would have been used like a reptile's to collect heat. However, it had hair like a mammal, so they're not quite sure what side that falls on. It was also examined by Greg Fox, a DNA specialist at San Diego. Tests determined that its hair was a metallic compound that contained aluminum, silicone, calcium, and copper. And strangely enough, when tested, the hair could withstand temperatures of 4,000 degrees and not disintegrate. It was offered to the UFO Museum in Roswell, but they declined it, and it is now in the Old West Museum outside of Wichita Falls, Texas, where you can see this today.
Huh.
So I did follow it, I have done my due diligence and gone back and followed its path here and there and found the reports and stuff on it. It really was seen by a lot of professionals, medical professionals, museum professionals. They have taken samples. The only kind of DNA they can get out of it is out of the hair follicles. They can't pull DNA from the body part of it. It never withstands the sampling process.
It's bizarre.
It is,
Alec
isn't
hair, I
it?
would think it'd be pretty tough.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 ribs on this side. 26.
So they believe 2 legs,
7.
no tail, just
Now, well, it was in really bad shape when the guy finally found it. So I do know that it had 2 long arms or front legs that had like the hand-like protrusions on it, but those literally have disintegrated and fall apart all the time over the time because it was moved to all these different facilities. And the gentleman who had it, has stayed anonymous because he didn't want his name tagged along with it, but he had reported that every time it came back from another institution, there was more pieces missing.
Ew.
Because they keep taking more and more samples, and they're not.
So.
And they're not being very discerning about what they're taking. So a good portion of what he originally recovered is now gone to all those different institutes and stuff. So, and it's not that long ago, 1991. So,
yeah, that's not very long ago.
And,
yeah,
and
it's
Karen in the chat says, or simply a deformed animal of some other sort with metallic hair.
It's been
that's a lot of
through,
ribs.
I would guess 25 plus universities, institute. It apparently NASA had a little hand in it too. Medical doctors, people who like they're experts in their fields, and they can't figure out what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and say nobody knows what it is.
Plausible.
Yeah. Now, if it's an alien creature, I don't know. It could have been perhaps it's something like an interbred something. Maybe
Hellhound.
something got with something else that shouldn't. I don't know.
Ian said a xenomorph from Alien. Maybe.
Ooh.
Leaning more towards something that transitioned from somewhere else and didn't survive that transition of going across.
No, I mean, there you go. It could have been.
Maybe so.
Do you think it's like Andrew Bazzaglio's dog or something?
Oh.
It didn't make it through the transporter.
Maybe
One of those-
so.
Correctly.
Only half of it made
something
it
like
through.
that. Brundle dog.
Ew.
It's like that meme.
It's
There's 2 wolves inside you. Sorry about the transporter accident.
It's a pet off the Eldridge or something.
Oh.
It's the ship mascot.
Oh, it's getting bad.
Oh, no.
I want to throw something out before we go on. I was just pointing out that we had some different people in our chat, and I forgot to do a shout out to Sylvain. Sylvain's in France. So we've got 3 different countries represented tonight. So yay. That's exciting.
We're doing good. Doing good.
For sure.
And we're still number 48 in Greece.
Number 48 in Greece. Nice.
We're 48.
On fire in Greece.
Okay, I have
out of 48, but still.
I have a super duper short one because once I heard this, I was not able to find any more info on it, but I thought it was really good. In 2017, there is a thing called the Utah Desert Anomaly, where hikers step through a fog, and we kind of talked about this on Border Town Strange when we were discussing time slips and time anomalies and things. But these hikers stepped through a fog and into a world that appeared to be prehistoric. And it freaked them out, rightly so. They turned around, the fog was still there. They dipped right back through it and came back into current times. The fog dissipated and it shut whatever portal or slip or whatever it was that had opened. But they were adamant this had happened. And I'm going to try to find more info on it. But I thought that was a really interesting one.
That is pretty interesting.
Where in Utah? How far away from the Utah basin was it?
Oh, I don't know. It just calls it the Utah Desert Anomaly. So I'll have to do some more digging. But it was from 2017. So I'll see what I can find. And if I do find, I'll let you know.
It reminds me of that guy with the Bermuda Triangle story, the guy in the plane that flew through the odd cloud and ended up kind of jumping forward
Yes.
somewhere much closer to Miami or wherever it was.
Well, these
Like
guys
that.
are
Either
just
that
lucky
or
enough
that
the
was
fog
the-
was still there. And that
That
they
was
could
the
go back.
fastest Beechcraft Bonanza ever created. I don't know.
He would have ripped the wings off. Not bad.
Actually, you get a tailwind. I don't know. I don't know anything about navigation. I won't. I can barely get down the street unassisted.
Mark's constantly turn left. Your other left. Yes.
Yeah.
Now go straight.
I tell them at work. Because I'm dyslexic. I'll just share this with everybody. It's a real thing. So if I tell you north, south, east, west, left, right, or any number, make me write it down or point, because
It's going to be.
you're just going to get
opposite.
word salad.
That's funny.
Did you have another story, Mark?
Oh, let's see. There's all kinds of weird ones. Oh. Can sleeping pills really mimic a demonic possession?
Ooh.
This is a real story on Newsweek. In Netflix's Devil on Trial, Tuesday viewers were introduced to the story of David Glatzel in 1980 at the age of 11, who was allegedly possessed by a demon, which was exorcised with the help of famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. And his story was adapted several times for the screen, including The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. Even now, he was convinced he was possessed by a demon as a child. However, his older brother, Carl, has never believed it. He reveals that while cleaning out his mother, Judy Glatzel's belongings after death, he found evidence that she had been drugging her family with the sleeping aid Sominex. Carl believes that his mother used the drug to control her 3 sons and father, sneaking the drug into their food. He also believes that the side effects of Sominex are the real cause of his brother's supposed possession, citing mood swings, weight gain, and hallucinations as side effects of the drug. At the end of the day, everybody's tired and exhausted. Guess what? Everybody's going to go rest and sit down. There's no problems. So that's kind of weird.
Okay.
Don't take sleeping pills. You could get possessed.
Apparently not.
So.
Oh my goodness. All right. So, okay. I was inspired by Enzo's story of things falling from the sky. So I have a couple of books here that I had been kind of looking through earlier, and this is kind of for him too. So this is out of one of my Mysterious Kentucky books.
Nice.
Right? Which is like Enzo's stomping ground, right?
Yep.
And while you guys were chit-chatting, I kind of pulled out one of the really good. They have a whole section on stuff that fell from the sky in Kentucky. Apparently it's a thing there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read this really quick little excerpt because I think it's pretty fun. It'll be nice and lighthearted compared to my last creepy creature one. So it was reported from Louisville, Kentucky on May 16th, 1965, that a Mr. Stanley Morris, while sitting in his living room chair one morning, heard a tremendously loud crash that seemed to come from out back of his home. Puzzled and alarmed, he sprang from his chair and dashed into the backyard, where, to his complete amazement, he found that the roof of his garage was entirely covered with bags of cookies.
Santa Claus.
What?
Furthermore, he noticed that the neighbors to either side of his own property had undergone the same calamity. Bags and bags of cookies everywhere. On closer examination, they were found to be contained in bags that were entirely devoid of markings or writing of any type. This might have been a bad situation had not the mysterious cookies turned out to be perfectly edible. And like as a little joke aside, it said underneath of it, and luckily the milkman was due any minute.
Wah wah.
Wow, wow, wow.
I was waiting for the setup of, so what kind of cookies were they? Misfortune cookies. It's
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Ah, there you go. So I thought that one was pretty
weird.
interesting.
Unmarked
tried the
bags
cookies. I would
of
try the
Cookies fall from the
cookies.
sky.
Manna from heaven.
I'm somehow like going back to my childhood and some kind of like Sesame Street skit with Cookie Monster on an airplane, just throwing
Just
bags
throw
of
cookies.
cookies out.
Ah,
Cookie.
at least they weren't frozen turkeys.
Oh,
For live turkeys.
that would be bad.
WKRP.
Oh man, I can't wait
Oh,
to
God.
replay that episode for Thanksgiving. I
That's
love
the
that.
best.
That is the best. As God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly.
My
Oh, the
goodness.
humanity.
Yes, that was the word. That was the line I was trying to think of.
Redoing the Hindenburg crash to turkeys falling from the sky.
Oh,
Oh, the humanity.
My goodness. Okay, so another one I wanted to touch on. So I've been sitting on this story for a little while, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard of this game. But every time I had a chance to bring it up in one of the podcasts, we would run out of time or it wouldn't quite fit in correctly. Have you guys heard about the Illuminati card game from the 90s?
No.
No? Okay. So back in the 80s, there was a game brought out called the Illuminati game, and it was a board game. And what it was that somebody who had a fondness for conspiracy theories and the Illuminati brought out this board game, and you would play it to win world domination. It was just a game. It wasn't very popular and it didn't sell well. And later on, it was kind of revamped into a card game and reintroduced in the early 90s, and it became extremely popular. It went on for a few years before it went out of print. But since then, the cards have started foretelling our future, like our time. Things that are happening right now are on these cards. I sent Mark a whole bunch of examples of them. If he wants to throw any of those up there. So, yeah, I'm just going to talk about it. Okay.
Here we go.
It's called Illuminati, The New World Order. It was released in 1994. It was released by Steve Jackson Games. And basically in it, so the players get cast into, you get to choose from 6 secret societies that you get to be a part of, and the goal of the game is to use the cards to take over the world, basically. And all of these cards have little pictures and scenarios on them, and they're all seemingly coming true. So the one you're looking at here is a picture of the Pentagon after an explosion happens, and of course we all can relate that from 9/11. There's also one of the Twin Towers with a matching card.
Oh gosh.
wow.
Some of them are near identical to the famous photos that have been taken of this. There's also an entire set of Quarantine. You can notice the 2020 printed on it.
Oh my
It doesn't
gosh.
show toilet paper though.
That's right. No
Yeah.
toilet paper shortage.
You can go ahead and pull up another one if you want. There's a whole bunch of them that relate to Trump.
Oh, we lost Mark.
Oh, we lost Mark. Well, I'll just keep talking about it.
Oh, no.
So there's 4 cards.
Shouldn't have
that
shown
relate
those
to Trump.
cards.
I don't know what happened. It was the Illuminati they were trying to
That
get.
was the fastest return I've ever seen.
I
Yeah,
hit the wrong back here.
so-
I told you guys I'm a little retarded tonight.
There There's a charismatic leader card that features a blonde-haired man who looks exactly like Trump talking to a large audience. There's another one that's called the assassination card, and it is Trump. It looks exactly like a picture of Trump that we have, a very famous one with a bullet flying by his head. And at the time when they started thinking this was conspiracy, because 9/11 stuff had been happening, they thought it was from when that attempt, yeah, back in, was it 2015 or whatever? But people are now believing it's talking about the actual assassination that tried to happen just a couple weeks ago. Right? So there you can see the martial law one. People think it's, I couldn't find the freaking picture it was talking about. So it matches a picture that was taken during the George Floyd riots when they gated off the White House. The March on Washington one, they're saying denotes, you know, the attack on the Capitol during that whole thing and the riots that happened. But they go on, and I couldn't sit here and show all
that
of
everybody was kung fu fighting.
Yeah. But in a lot of the cards kind of
Pam,
confer
now that's
to
going through my head.
kind of refer to what's going on right now, like the media blitz and throwing our history away and all this other stuff. And it seems like nearly every week a new card is becoming prevalent to what's happening today. So I just thought it was a really kind of creepy.
I wondered about some of those ones that haven't come true yet. Which ones are those?
Yeah, well, like you can't, the cards, because it's been out of print for so long, you have to pay thousands of dollars on eBay just to get a hold of a pack, unfortunately. And it's really hard to get a hold of an entire pack now because people know that these individual cards are worth so much. Most of the sets are broken up and they sell them piece by piece. So you've really got to get, like, piece together your own game. I did do a little bit of research on the company and the guy who put this card set out because I was just a little interested in what their backgrounds were. So I found out, listen to this, on March 1st, 1990, so this would have been about 3 years before the card game was put out, the Secret Service raided the offices of Steve Jackson Games in Austin, Texas, and confiscated their hard drives and documents, some of which belonged to the game that they were producing. One of the company's employees, Lloyd Blankenship, was also a hacker who served as the system operator for a messaging board that had published a stolen set of files that detailed how America's 911 emergency response systems worked. A fact that the Secret Service had been tipped off to and had been granted a search warrant to investigate.
Interesting.
So
Weird.
Yeah.
They
all of
kind of
that
falls
going
into
on.
that story you had earlier. It's like, why was the military looking around where they found that weird creature? You know, that kind of thing. It's like, why would the CIA show up at a card game company place?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
that would be actually against the law for the CIA to show up. It would have to be the FBI.
Right.
The CIA is not allowed to operate on domestic soil. Period. I mean, they still off people on American soil, but they're not supposed to.
Ian had said, "Are you sure the cards haven't been reimagined in more recent years? Would be interesting to get a hold of an original 90s pack."
I agree.
So all the packs are original. They've never been reimagined. It's all the original pack. And if you want to go up and online and look, just
I'll have to check it
type
out.
in the Illuminati game 1990s and go into the pictures. You can go up on eBay and see all of them. It's never been redone. It didn't run for very long. And like I said, it's out of print and it's really hard. You've got to have some cash on hand to want to buy.
Ken says the key is not supposed to. And that's true.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to.
That's very true. But
All right.
Yeah,
Anybody got anything else?
I see a Illuminati cards, New World Order, unlimited set, complete 409 cards, $624 on eBay.
yeah. It's expensive. Oh, believe me, because I've wanted to buy one. I've been sitting on this one for a little while because I think I found it when we were looking for, like, we were talking about things in the future or prophecies or things like that, and I didn't get to use it. We ran out of time, and then I tried to use it for something else. Maybe when we were talking about how the Simpsons, when we were talking about the Simpsons predict things, I was going to chuck it in on the end, but we ran out of time again. So I was like, I'm going to throw it in on this one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I may or may not sneeze all over y'all.
Oh, no. So do you guys have any more stories, or?
I don't have any more good stories.
I don't either.
I might be able to find something really bizarre. I don't know.
Well, you look for something really bizarre. I'll tell a couple of little short ones. I have tons of this stuff here, so I could probably just keep going. I found a really interesting one out of St. Louis. So this one's for Ken, if he's still on here listening. Yep. This one happened back on May 6th, 1888. I call it the Week of the Eels. So over the course of 1 week, residents in St. Louis started finding eels in their bathroom and kitchen sinks.
Ew.
Yeah. So they, of course, everybody's yelling about finding this stuff in their sinks. And the water commissioner claimed that the eels could easily pass through the filters for the water plant and grow larger before emerging. But was found to be completely untrue. The eels shouldn't have been able to make it up into the water systems. The eel stopped after a week, and it never happened again. So I thought that one was a kind of like trees falling from the sky.
That was a coincidental one I actually had up on one of my deals. You want to talk about eels?
Yeah, so the Week of the Eels started popping up in people's piping.
They come up out of the toilet and bite your butt.
Ken is still here, by the way. He said, "Yay,
yay, yay, Ken!" I hope you don't find any eels in your soup tonight. Another one I pulled up. This one's an older one. It's a little short. Like I don't think you would call it a haunting. It's something else altogether. So this happened March 14th, 1922, in Alva, Oklahoma. And I'm sure Mark and Pam have probably heard of this one.
Yeah, that's not too far away.
Yeah. It happened to a lady called Ona Smith. She was 23 at the time. And unfortunately, due to some illnesses, she had become paralyzed and was confined to her bed. And unluckily for her, for about a month's time, she had to have constant supervision with her because these mysterious blue flames started popping up midair in her house and catching things on fire.
Ew. That's weird.
It caught her clothing on fire. It caught books on fire. It even caught her brand new mattress on fire because they had to replace the old one because it was burnt. They said there were tiny little blue flames that would just pop up midair and then they would zap to whatever was closest to them and set them on fire. She was on constant fire watch. It drew the attention of local people and the papers, and one of the papers sent a reporter in to kind of prove it wrong, to be like, we're going to stay with you for like a couple of days and, let's see if you can kind of reproduce this. Reporter's clothes got burnt. It set him on fire.
Dang.
Right? It lasted for a few weeks, pooped out, and then never happened again. But it made national attention. You can actually find it in the archives of the New York Times because they reported on it too.
I wonder if that was a case of pyrokinesis.
Maybe.
Ken said it's spontaneous combustion. Maybe that's how stuff like that happens,
Maybe.
Because nobody's ever caught it in action. They don't know how it happens.
I was thinking like some kind of electrical disturbance like St. Elmo's fire, because that was always described as like kind of being like alive almost, the way when back in the old days when it would appear on like the masts of ships during a thunderstorm and stuff like that. It was considered unlucky and you're trying to wipe it off and then get shocked and stuff.
That's wild.
They did say that little interesting tidbit that I found when I was researching it was that so they said it had this, it was a little tiny, it was always blue, and it would just pop up midair, and then it would like jump or like shoot towards something and catch it on fire. The first oddity is that once it caught fire, it was incinerated. Even if it's just in that little small point, there was nothing left of that. It wasn't like it was just singed. And the second thing was they said they always knew when it was getting ready to happen because you could hear this crackle sound in the air really fast right before it produced. It kind of reminds me of the fire swamp in The Princess Bride. You know, they always had the warning sounds before stuff happened. So I don't know.
Well, that is pretty weird. How old was this woman you said?
She was only like 23, 24 at the time.
So, you know, young girls are often associated with. She was a little old, but since she was disabled at the time, emotionally she would have been a wreck. And, you know, young women have been associated with like poltergeists and other paranormal activity. And that really does lead me to believe maybe it was some sort of psychokinetic, pyrokinetic type.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
In asked where did that happen? Was it in a coal field? Pockets of mine gas can do that. It was not in a coal field. It was in this woman's home in Alva, Oklahoma.
I do not believe there is any coal fields anywhere around there.
No.
There might be natural gas.
No.
But
Alva's a little farming town. They have a lot of farms and pasture land in Alva. Alva's a tiny town.
Yeah, it's not very big.
Very small.
So
yeah, if they had natural gas leaking like that out of the ground somehow, that I think that she would have been overcome with it, and probably the whole house would have blown up.
I think that all of her helpers that were putting out the fires would have either asphyxiated, because it would have blown up. Because if there was gas just sitting in the air, one little spark should have blown that house to smithereens.
Yeah, and you wouldn't smell it, you know, not the natural.
Right.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the odorant added to it.
Right, doesn't have that additive in it.
So,
interesting.
Natural gas has no scent until it has that sulfur, whatever the heck it is, added to it.
They add to it just so as a warning, basically, so you can smell it.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ian said lots of shell gas in Oklahoma. There is, There is a lot of natural stuff. That's a fascinating one, though, especially
but you would think it would be happening someplace else besides just that house.
Yeah.
Or that the house would have just totally exploded and there would have been a giant crater.
And we have had houses explode around here.
Yes, we have had that happen, yes. Both to gas leaks, and that has happened due to natural gas bubbling up out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So
Melrose. I was trying to think of the name. There's a little town between Caney and Joplin called Melrose, Kansas. And in an afternoon, 2 of the houses exploded, like within an hour of each other, and it was natural gas leaks. So that was crazy. I remember that.
So yep, that could happen. I don't have anything else. You guys got anything else?
I have tons, but I could go for days, so we can stop this anytime you want.
We can do it again one of these days.
Yeah.
I enjoy just the kind of free form.
Yeah, these are fun.
Yeah. I just love storytelling.
Yeah, I have so much stuff. I could just keep going.
All right.
You know, for your channel, you should do those in shorts form. You could have a couple of
idea.
Yes.
Little shorts, little weird shorts.
Yeah.
Paranormal
that's right.
Shorts.
That's right.
Yep.
You guys
strange shorts.
Strange shorts. I have some strange shorts, but no.
No, Mark.
No.
Which also may explode violently. So
often, yes. I mean, I had a blowout today at work.
Oh,
Sure
this
you
has
did.
gone off the rails. This has gone off the rails.
Ken said there's a compressor station explosions too. I worked for a natural gas pipeline company for 6 years. Yeah,
So,
bad stuff.
all right, everybody, tune in next week for What If Tomorrow, and then on Wednesday there'll be another episode of Border Town Strange, where hopefully I am not too sick to attend like I was last week. And with that being said, I think we're done. Do you guys have anything else?
I don't. Just thank you to everybody in the chats. It's really good to
Yeah, we had
have
a
the
good
input,
group in the chats. I really enjoyed having everybody on.
for sure.
All right.
Yay.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.